Good afternoon. Welcome to the Joint Committee, the House and Senate Committees on Housing, along with the Committees on Transportation in the House and Senate, and the Transit-Oriented Development representatives. I wanted to thank all of you for participating today. Today is Wednesday, February 2nd, 2022. It's 1:32 p.m. and we're doing this meeting via video conference. I'd like to introduce the Vice Chair of our Housing Committee, Rep. Troy Hashimoto, and Transportation Chair, Henry Aquino, a member of the Housing and Transportation Committee, Gregor Ilagan, and Representative Lisa Kitagawa. Thank you for joining us on the House side. And then Senator Chang, would you like to introduce your members?
Thank you, Chair Nakamura. I see, in addition to myself, I see Transportation Chair Senator Chris Lee. I see Senator Sharon Moriwaki, and I see our Housing Vice Chair, Senator Drew Kanuha.
Thank you all for joining us on in this informational briefing. The purpose of this briefing is to share the work of all 8 different state agencies that have been working on housing development along the transit line in Honolulu, and to talk about statewide issues as well. But we're going to go through the presentation and then save some time at the end for questions and answers. So we're going to go straight into the presentation, and I'd like to introduce Mary Alice Evans, who's the head of Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. Thank you, Mary Alice, for all of the work of you and your staff to put this presentation together.
Thank you very much, Representative Nakamura. And thank you, Senator Chang and Senator Lee, for helping to host this presentation. On behalf of my co-chair for the TOD Council, Denise Isari Matsubara, wave Denise, and the agency representatives that Representative Nakamura mentioned, we'd like to thank you and the committee members for giving us the opportunity to present on affordable housing in transit-oriented development areas. A special mahalo to Representative Nakamura's staff for the hard work of organizing this briefing. After our presentations, we hope you'll have a better idea of what the state agencies are doing in collaboration with the city and private sector to meet the housing demands and build family-friendly communities along the rail corridor. We have a lot to show you. So I'll introduce the teams of presenters from the state and city, then Rodney Funakoshi from the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development will take over and guide us through the presentations. With us today for HHFDC are Denise Isari Matsubara, Dean Minakami, and Randy Chu. From the Hawaii Public Housing Authority, Hakeem Uansafi, Kevin O'Jay, Ben Park, and Andrew Tang. From DHHL, Daryl Ng. From the University of Hawaii, Mike Shibata, Calbert Young, and Bonnie Arakawa. From DLNR, we have Russell Suji, Ian Hirokawa, Lauren Yasaki, and Blue Ka'anehe. From DOE, Randy Tanaka and Roy Ikeda. From DOT, Ed Sniffen, Dre Kalili, Ken Tatsuguchi, Shelley Kunishigi, and David Rodriguez. From HCDA, we may be joined by Deepak Nupani and Craig Nakamoto. And from DAGS, Kurt Odoguro, Chris Kinimaka, and David DuPont. And for the Aloha Stadium, Ross Yamasaki, John Fink, and Ryan Andrews. From the Department of Public Safety, Maria Cook and Wayne Takara. And from the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development, Rodney Funakoshi, Ruby Edwards, and Carl Miura. And last but not least, from the City and County of Honolulu, Harrison Rue. As you know, government cannot solve the housing crisis alone. Hawaii's private sector plays a key role in the delivery of housing units, and we'd like to acknowledge the attendance of representatives of major landowners of properties along the rail line who have assisted the TOD Council in developing the list of planned housing projects that appear in the handout that was distributed to the committee members. From Castle and Cook, we have Laura Kodama and Michelle Otaki. From Kamehameha Schools, Walter Thamos and Hillary Alamar. And from DR Horton, Tracy Tonaki. Again, thank you all. And I'm handing it over to Rodney Funakoshi. Go, Rodney.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mary Alice. My name is Rodney Funakoshi. So I'm with the
Excuse me, Rodney. This is Ruby. I'm having trouble sharing my screen. So some technical difficulties here. I don't know why I can't get this to share.
Oh,
We can see it.
You can see it?
We can see it.
You're seeing the presentation?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
put it on start. From the beginning.
Because I'm not seeing that. I do apologize, everyone. Sorry.
It's not in presentation mode, Ruby.
I know. I'm good. I'm starting there now. Okay, can you see that now?
it's not in presentation mode.
Okay. I think it's because my monitor's on the wrong one, I think. How's this one? Sorry. Oh my God.
What about clicking on the bottom where you can just go to the slides? Bottom right.
No.
Okay, then maybe just minimize your minimize the header, and then that might be
Yeah. The problem is I have two monitors and I can't get it to flip over to the monitor that I'm using. Let me just try one more thing.
Maybe best to stop sharing, then.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I will do that. Let me, so that we can get this to work. All right, I apologize.
That's okay.
Okay.
Okay, so you're seeing this one. Yeah, okay, I'll unmute. Let me unmute while I figure what's going on.
So we'll.
I can kind of go over
Yeah.
what we're going to cover today, and you know it's on one of the slides anyway. But agenda is first to kind of take an overall view of TOD on Oahu and statewide, and how affordable housing plays a key role in that. We'll also be looking more throughout the presentation. We have many all of the key state agencies, along with the City and County of Honolulu's TOD projects and initiatives relative to affordable housing and infrastructure. And we're focusing, of course, along the rail corridor. DOT will be presenting some of their support initiatives. And then we'll conclude with some corridor-wide infrastructure needs and cost estimates. So that's sort of an overview. And just to kind of get started on, we see TOD as really a great vehicle for affordable housing. It has both density and diversity and mixed-use elements that we're looking for in creating a very fine communities. And so the major benefits of TOD is that you can, of course, do more units with higher density with less land. It lowers your overall infrastructure costs. And then there's also reduced pressure on our agricultural and rural lands. And then relative to diversity and mixed use, it allows for subsidizing affordable housing, with market homes. It promotes walkability, complete communities, and access to amenities. And then finally, reduces energy costs, vehicle miles traveled, greenhouse gas emissions. So our TOD Council was formed in 2016 by Act 130, and it includes 25 members, co-chaired by the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development and the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation. But it includes it has all the key state agencies with land holdings, And then we have also all 4 counties represented on the TOD Council, along with specific interests. So we have developers, affordable housing, and business interests. And we also have HUD also participating. And then last but not least, we have the legislature. So we have Senate and House representatives on TOD Council that meets bi-monthly to go over TOD project status of plans and so forth. Okay, so in 2000, okay, next slide, Ruby, is fine. We have the, yeah, okay. So the state TOD strategic plan was developed in 2018. That was one of the initial tasks of the TOD Council. It kind of sets the framework for all of our TOD work. And there's a comprehensive inventory of over 70 state and county TOD projects. But more importantly, what it sets forth is the vision that we want to see, to use state lands and properties as catalysts or anchors for investing in affordable housing and having more livable communities that can be integrated with public transit. Okay, and then we have a statewide focus, but a lot of activity near term is concentrated on the Honolulu rail system, which is what our focus is here today. But we also wanted to touch on what's going on with the neighbor islands that doesn't have rail, but they certainly have public bus transit systems. All of them do, very good ones that we have a number of projects, and I'll just highlight a few of them next. Yeah, so on the Big Island, in both Hilo and Kona and Puna, one that we're working on is a lot of Kila homes. That's both a public housing and a County of Hawaii multimodal transit project. On Maui, the Kahului Mixed-Use Civic Center combines DAGs, public library, and with an adjacent Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation affordable housing project. On Kauai, in Kapa'a, the Samuel Mahilona Memorial Hospital has a great TOD opportunity on its upper level campus that we're currently working on a master plan for. And so these are just some examples of near island TOD that's underway. Yeah, underway there. Okay, next. Okay, on Oahu, however, which is where the bulk of action and activities have been occurring over the past 5 years, we have, well, actually longer than that, but as far as the TOD Council's work is concerned, what we have done is identified 3 priority areas along the Honolulu Rail, and these include the East Kapolei area, the Halawa Stadium area, and then the Iwile Kapalama in more downtown Honolulu. And so these are the areas that we have channeled most of our attention, and where there is the greatest opportunity for affordable housing and mixed-use development in TOD. Okay, with that intro, I'd like to ask the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation to summarize some of the work that they've been doing relative to affordable housing. So at this time, here, Randy Chu, if you can introduce yourself and proceed, that would be appreciated.
Aloha and good afternoon, committee chairs, vice chairs, and members. I'm Randy Chu, HHFDC Development Section Chief. On behalf of HHFDC, we are pleased to provide you information regarding the transit-oriented development affordable housing projects our agency has completed and currently working on. As an overall summary, we present to you a map of the recently completed and current HHFDC affordable housing projects located on the HART rail alignment. The green circles designate the area within a 1/2 mile radius of each rail station. The purple areas designate areas within a 1 mile radius of the various stations. The red dots indicate the affordable housing projects HHFDC has completed within the immediate past 5 years. The blue dots indicate affordable housing projects that we are working on and are currently active. In total, 17 projects were completed within the TOD areas during the immediate past 5 years, and the current active project count is 14. The next slide shows an enlargement of the area delineated by the dashed lines. This slide shows areas adjacent to the rail alignment from Dillingham Ka'ahi Street Station to the Ala Moana Station. Again, the red dots indicate projects HHFDC has completed within the last 5 years, and the blue dots indicate the project locations of currently active projects. Details of the individual current active projects will be provided later as part of this briefing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Randy. Okay, at this point, I'd like to introduce Hakeem Wansafi. Hakeem, if you can introduce yourself, and he's going to discuss some recent public housing initiatives. Hakeem?
Yes, aloha everyone. Hope you're doing well, staying safe and healthy. Built in the 50s and the 60s with over $700 million construction need, much of the HPHA's existing housing portfolio has reached the end of its useful life and urgently requires redevelopment. Unfortunately, the federal funding required to remodel these assets has all but halted for decades, and there has been no new public housing constructed since the late 1980s. The HPHA has site control over an extraordinary portfolio that's underutilized state lands assets located in prime PUC and TOD areas that could significantly increase the amount of density that is needed to provide additional affordable housing. The good news is that recent programs developed by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, including the RAD and Section 18 RAD blend, together with recent initiative being considered by Congress, does give us reason to be hopeful. And this trend may be reversed, hopefully sometime in the very near future, while we can reposition our portfolio. So armed with our enabling statutes to not only manage our existing housing stock, but also to develop additional units, the redevelopment creates really an exceptional opportunity to provide not only one-for-one replacement of our existing public housing that we currently manage, but also the potential to introduce additional density to provide much needed affordable housing to the community. Our board, HPHA board, endorsed a strategic program over the last several years to pursue a series of private-public partnerships to undertake the redevelopment of our portfolio. Along the rail, for example, our board endorsed a plan to redevelop 3,000 units currently at the end of its life, where we could potentially build up to 13,000, increasing the inventory by 10,000. Leveraging capital resources through public-private partnerships, transit-oriented development, incentive, and underutilized state assets do create an extraordinary opportunity for us to deliver much needed affordable housing to the state and to create a more livable, vibrant, integrated communities instead of concentrating poverty in one area. Nonetheless, we are aware that there are headwinds and challenges that we face, such as the cost of building in Honolulu being amongst the highest in the nation. I believe we are typically the third or the fourth behind New York and San Francisco. Infrastructure availability remains a challenge, but it is getting better. The majority of our assets are funded by HUD, so we are burdened to meet both federal and state procurement and environmental reviews requirement. And the process of achieving permits, entitlement, and zoning approvals are complex and take a lot of time. Not to mention some of the things we face in some of the projects, most recent projects, the NIMBY resistance, and the sourcing and structuring required to finance these transactions are really complex and sophisticated in the real estate space. But mostly we are also a small island state, and there is simply not enough financial resources, just as the LIHTC and bond cap, to deliver all these units. So we have to phase and be really coordinating with our sister agency. We are hopeful, however, and grateful for the continued cooperation and collaboration that we have enjoyed with HSFDC and other state agencies, as well as county agencies over the past few years. And we are also internally grateful for the continued support that we've been blessed by the legislature, the governor, and the housing advocates. Details on specific developments will be presented by our redevelopment officer, Kevin Oj, when he is called upon by Rodney. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you, Hakeem. Next slide. Okay, we're going to go through along the rail corridor, and these are sort of the areas we're focusing on. The 2020 study that was completed for TOD planning and implementation, and so we did, more detailed land use analyses that total 40,000 residential units, but also commercial, hotel, industrial, and of course stadium. And so we'll be running through some of these in more detail through this presentation. Next. Next slide. What we have done, the TOD Council formed an affordable housing work group several years ago to take a look at, what are the opportunities. So this table that compiles both public and private projects in the priority areas as well as elsewhere along the rail has been distributed to the legislators. It's also available on Office of Planning and Sustainable Development's website, TOD website, where we maintain a repository of all of our TOD information and reports. So that's accessible at planning.hawaii.gov, LUD, and TOD. So that is available at the last slide, that link, but it's planning.hawaii.gov, and you can probably navigate your way through that. But we're going to go through a lot of the projects in here, but this table summarizes the affordable housing and timeframe for development. Next. Okay, starting out with the East Kapolei TOD priority area. And so this, of course, is the area largely undeveloped now, but major state holdings are here, including UH West Oahu campus, Department of Land and Natural Resources, Department of Hawaiian Homelands, and the private Ho'opili Master Plan community. So a lot of activity out here, along with at least several rail stations that have already been developed. And so we're going to go through, and this kind of tabulates here the affordable units and total units in this area. Okay, next. So we'll start off with the Department of Hawaiian Homelands. So Darryl Ng, if you can introduce yourself and go through your projects. Thank you.
Aloha, senators and representatives. My name is Darryl Ng. I'm with the Land Development Division of the Department of Hawaiian Homelands. What you see on your screen here is Ka'ulu o Kahai, our master plan community in Kapolei. The area in the entire master plan community is about 404 acres. The area in yellow is our DHHL holdings, approximately 250 acres. Parcels were excluded from conveyance to DHHL, with 2 parcels going to HHFDC, Ko'olu'ula, and Kehomoa Place. 2 parcels to the Department of Education for middle school and future elementary school, and 1 parcel to the Salvation Army for their Croc Community Center. Next, please. This is our overall East Kapolei master plan map. The Kanihili development on the left side is 99.9% complete. There are just a couple of self-help homes still being constructed. Our DHHL headquarters is also there. On the middle of the screen, the area in yellow are completed projects, completed infrastructure and vertical construction projects. In the middle, increment 2B is a 160 single-family subdivision. Most of those homes were constructed by Gentry Builders as a turnkey project. All of those are completed. Remaining 21 lots were awarded as vacant lots to owner builders, and some of those are already in construction. The rest are going through their architect and contractor selection phases. The area in green at the bottom is increment 2A. That's our TOD project. We are looking at anywhere from 250 to 500 units of multifamily rentals. This is a departure from our normal single-family development. We're looking at affordable rentals to help our families get their finances in order to eventually purchase a home down the road. We're looking at doing an RFP by the end of this year, issuing an RFP and selecting a developer sometime in 2023. Probably starting construction in 2023, 2024. The area in purple is increment 2C. That's 130 lots. We're preparing request for proposals for bids, probably to be issued by the end of this month or early next month. Starting construction in later this year. That is being financed, by the way, from the lump sum appropriations granted by the legislature in 2020, and 2021. We had two increments of 30 million each, of which we're going to spend probably 20 to 25 million for the infrastructure and lot development. The area in blue is our increment 2E. That is going to be starting designs later this year with construction starting in 2025 and completed in sometime in 2026. The white areas, we have future development of two more increments, one of 226 lots and another of 167 lots, plus some another multifamily, probably TOD related development along this drainage channel on the left side of our properties. Back to you, Rodney. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Darryl.
And can I just ask all speakers to put on their cameras so we can see you as you speak? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Representative. Okay, next, West Oahu. So Michael Shibata, can you introduce yourself and proceed?
Thank you, Rodney. Aloha and good afternoon, senators and representatives. My name is Michael Shibata with the University of Hawaii System under its Office of Strategic Development and Partnership. The West Oahu lands are approximately 500 acres in total. Roughly 300 of those acres have been identified as university campus lands, which account for existing and future campus expansion. 175 acres has been identified as non-campus lands, otherwise known as the university district lands. These lands are identified in yellow on the map on your screen and are generally located adjacent to Kualaka'i Parkway, the first two rail stations of HART, and includes the planned TOD areas. The university district lands are planned to include over 5,000 residential units, over 1 million square feet in commercial, parks, open spaces, and supporting roadways and infrastructure that are part of the university's long-range development plan, which is in the process of being updated. The Long Range Development Plan, or LRDP, provides the university with the vision and framework for both the campus and non-campus lands. Work is ongoing, and a temporary park and ride facility, as well as a secondary access point to the campus, have been recently built next to the second rail station. The university also continues its coordination with DOT on the Farrington Highway Improvement Project, which provides much needed relief to regional traffic in the area, but specifically to UH West Oahu, it will provide additional vehicular access points and other roadway improvements to its lands fronting Farrington Highway. For the last 5 years, the university has been trying to start development of the university district lands. UH's previous attempt to have one master developer build out the entire 175 acres has been canceled, with the university opting instead to pivot to a more targeted, phased approach in terms of development. My office, the Office of Strategic Development and Partnership, was recently created by the university to help spur development and provide for potential revenue generating opportunities to support the university. Thanks. Within the university district lands, the University Village near the corner of Farrington Highway and Kualaka'i Parkway has been identified as an area to focus this initial development. The approach was to identify the low-hanging fruit and locating development in areas with existing major infrastructure already in place or located nearby. Further work is needed to refine this concept, but we are actively working on TOD possibilities with HART and other state agencies. Next slide. The governor has included $10 million in CIP funding for planning and design of the University Village project in the hopes that it will be a catalyst to jumpstart progress to develop additional housing, as well as the potential campus expansion of UH West Oahu. Depending on the size of the University Village project, in terms of the overall concept, the acreage, density, height, the plan could support as much as 2,000 housing units over the next 10 years. Thanks again for the opportunity to present. Back to you, Rodney and Ruby.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Okay, next, Department of Land and Natural Resources. Ian Hirokawa, please introduce yourself.
Oh, thank you, Rodney. Thank you, members, both House and Senate members, for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Ian Hirokawa, and I'm with the DLNR Land Division. The department has 4 parcels in the East Kapolei region adjacent to the UH West Oahu and rail station. Our affordable housing, our housing efforts will be focused on the 2 parcels that are east of Kualaka'i Parkway. The central parcel is right adjacent to the the rail station, the UH West Oahu rail station, and the parcel immediately malka of that across Farrington Highway between Farrington and H1 freeway. And as you see on the map, there are the parcels that are marked in red. The parcel marked in red, and also the yellow portions that's affordable for the affordable housing efforts. Could we go to the next slide, please? So the phase 1, which is the station area, is intended to be a mixed use development, and that will have the majority of the affordable rent. It'll be rental housing units, so it'll also be included commercial, retail, hotel, medical, and the housing. We do note, though, that this parcel is somewhat encumbered in its full use by the rail guideway, and will also have to incorporate the parking capacity for the rail station, a park and ride site essentially, and the bus turnaround. So we're working with both the city, HART, and OTS to make sure that everything kind of fits together. We do plan an additional amount of housing, like I said, on the parcel malka of that. On the east side, that parcel is effectively split in half by Kapolei Gulch, so the east side will be dedicated to additional housing units, and with some light industrial units on the west side of the gulch. Currently, the project status is we're starting our EIS process, so that'll be the EIS public notice should be prepared and go out for public comment later this year. I'm actually in the first, excuse me, I would say later in the earlier half of this year. So we're looking at potentially May or June, early summer. And our goal is to, once we complete the EIS, to work and collaborate hopefully with HHFTC to help bring these help realize these projects. Another thing that we have here is also the TOD. This is the East Kapolei TOD plan map, and we've worked with the city to incorporate all our proposed uses into the TOD plan, including the housing. And thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Next up, DOE, Roy Ikeda.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Roy Ikeda, Acting Public Works Manager, Department of Education Facilities Development Branch. East Kapolei High School is planned to be designed and constructed in the northern boundary of the Hawai'i development, right along the freeway. It's not right against, but there's a buffer zone separating the high school parcel with the freeway itself. Currently, we're in the planning stages for the development of the 47 acres of parcel of land. And we're actively engaged with our consultant to plan all the facilities for a full high school. This is one of 4 campuses total. There's 3 elementary schools also planned for the area, as well as a middle school. We are in coordination. We are in discussions with DR Horton, as well as the Department of Transportation and the School Facilities Authority on coordinating the timing of the development for the high school parcel. And we intend to go to the legislature in the next few years for design funds as well as construction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Roy. Next up is DOT, Ed Sniffen. Hi, Ed.
Thank you, Rodney. Aloha, Chair, members. Ed Sniffen from Hawaii Department of Transportation. Just to talk a little bit about the Farrington Highway project that we're doing in this area to support TOD. This is a facility that's about 3.5 miles long, or the project itself, to support development in that area. And we showed just a map to indicate all the areas or all the lands that this project will support in providing capacity through this region. Now, this project is, the way it came about was, in the past, we've conditioned this the requirement of a 6-lane facility through this area. But that condition came in 15, 20 years ago. As we come forward, we're looking at better uses of our land, better use of our resources, and better accommodations of transit itself. Initially, when we started considering the needs of capacity in this area, the transit capture we considered was very, very low. Now, when we start looking at things, and the way the bus is running, the way part will come through, we're looking at better captures of this transit accommodation and making sure that we can accommodate all modes of transportation better. So we designed the facility now for a 3-lane facility versus 4. That 3-lane facility will better capture the needs for capacity through that area at a slower speed, because if you look at this development and you look at where this highway is running, it's going to bisect the community. All of the residents are on one side, the school's on the other. We don't want kids walking across the speedway. So when we look at this 3-lane facility with 13 intersections, 8 of them that are signalized or unsignalized and 5 that are signalized, we're making sure that everybody can cross safely. So it'll be a much better fit for the community, especially for the use that we're considering through this area. And it ties in very nicely to the additional capacity that we're building on H1. So that's how we're looking at this facility here. The 3 lanes, this concept is the way we're looking at all developments moving forward, to ensure that we're not asking developers to develop any more than they need to. We're looking at developing for the needs of the community now and the communities that we want into the future, while making sure that we accommodate better for bikes and peds and transit throughout. Next slide, please. That's what it looks like now. This 3.5 mile project is going to be about $150 million. Next slide. Because it's taking it from that to this new facility. So it's going to be 3 lanes, 1 lane going in each direction with a center turn lane throughout. When we looked at the capacity needs throughout this system, in reality, the 6 lanes or the 4 lanes that we were considering before was taking care of all the turning movements that were necessary at the intersections. We knew we could accommodate that with the left turn movement throughout. So we could pare down the facility, increase the multimodal access to the facility, and make sure that we can take care of all of that capacity through this downsized or right-sized facility. We also have the opportunity, if I'm dead wrong and we need more capacity, we also have the opportunity to contraflow that middle lane during the peak time. So it's a better accommodation for everybody. Next slide, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Next up, we have the City and County of Honolulu. Harrison Rue is going to describe their TOD initiatives, including infrastructure. Harrison?
Good afternoon, aloha members. Next slide. I think people are familiar with that this is definitely a greenfield area, very different from some of the areas. And before we jump into the infrastructure for here, just a couple of notes. We've been working, as Rodney mentioned in the beginning, with the state agencies for years. They participated in our TOD plans, our infrastructure needs assessments, both for the corridor and for EVA. And then we've participated in all of the state TOD strategic plan implementation projects and infrastructure. We've been fortunate to have some of the same consultants. So some of this team has been working on these infrastructure needs for years. And then we'll talk more about the infrastructure finance project later. But I do want to also mention that we're going to focus just on these kind of infrastructure and major TOD things today. This is not at all of the efforts that city is doing on housing and infrastructure, both in the TOD corridor and the urban area. And we can talk about some of those another time. But there's a lot of money on the streets for affordable housing from city right now. About 40 million was just announced. And we're also working to expedite housing projects in urban areas just outside of the TOD zones as well. So just going to focus on the ones that really serve the major state properties today. Next. Years ago, we did this, assessment of housing potential, came up with around 50,000 in the corridor. That number is probably north of 60 or more now. But you can see on the left, tiny print is East Kapolei, the biggest single area in terms of capacity because it's a greenfield. And then moving over, right, you see Ala Moana, but the two just left of Ala Moana is Kalihi and Iwalei downtown. You put those together, and that area, both in terms of capacity with the state and private lands like KS, Castle and Cook, tremendous capacity in that area as well. Next. And then we also, this is as of 2017, we assessed what projects and funding we had kind of in place, underway, planned over the next, 6 to 20 years. And it's roughly, at that point, it was 1.5 billion. I think it's up to 1.7 now. You'll notice when state folks talk about the infrastructure at the end, it's more like 3 times that much in total. That includes all the infrastructure that is needed to serve the actual development. This is kind of the part that gets to the development. Next. We know it's higher than that 1.5 billion. And last but not least, in East Kapolei station areas, you've seen the state agencies talk about their plans for these 3 areas. Want to thank the folks that participated. All our East Kapolei TOD plan is based on and coordinated with the plans that you saw, the state agencies, as well as DR Horton and Ho'opili. Next. And we did, when we updated the TOD plan, this was the first one that was drafted around 2011. We updated it and it was adopted last year. We asked all the state agencies and the private developers, how much more height do you think you need for the market, and encourage them to ask for more height. And, really we were willing to, go through the analysis of all that. And really all of their market consultants said there really isn't any near-term market need for more than about 120 feet or 12 stories. So those are the highest ones that you'll see in there. As rail gets to going all the way downtown, we might see more market demand for higher density, but that's currently the best guesses right now. Next. I think that was my last slide for this. Yeah, so back to you, Rodney.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Harrison. Okay, we're moving on, trying to go through Waipahu to Aiea. And this is not a priority area, but there are some initiatives from the state level in the Waipahu Civic Center area. We have 3 or 4 agencies that have potential plans for redevelopment near in that Waipahu TOD, right next to the transit station there. And Kamehameha Schools also has significant plans here. So they have both in that TOD area to develop affordable units. And Leeward Community College at this time is not ready, but yeah, but so that pretty much covers the state area. And I think next, turn it back to Harrison again, to kind of cover some of what the city has been doing in this Waipahu area.
Sure, and I'm going to go into a deep dive on some of the sewer improvements for the whole corridor. This is where they start, but in Waipahu West Lock area, there's 2 stations, and this is one of those areas that folks really put a lot of effort from the community into creating a plan to retain the old plantation town, as well as to really revitalize West Lock. Next. So we're talking a lot about major infrastructure, but we've also have roughly 70 or so rail access projects and minor improvements to a lot of streets and roads. And one of the first ones to get implemented was the Waipahu Transit Center going in the existing Hikimoy. This is one of our busiest transit centers along Hikimoy Street, and it serves all the state's Civic campus there as well. The area that KS wants to develop is really in the lower left hand, below that on either side of Hikimoy Street. But we went through and spent several $1 million on widening the existing waiting areas for they're already crowded with buses. So when rail comes, to be able to have more access to the buses, as well as a major kind of green infrastructure to support the new trees along there as well. So we kind of did some kind of climate action stuff as well. Next. We also, this is the one area that has the adopted zoning. And if it's not colored here, it's basically largely single family neighborhoods or areas that don't want to see improvements like some of the industrial areas left out. That adopted zoning is automatically mixed use. This is one of the few areas where the community really did not want to see major height and density, because there is in Waipahu, the smokestack at the end of East Depot Road, Plantation Town, they really feel that that's the character. They didn't want to see buildings that were higher than the smokestack. And the city agreed with that because there's so much other land that could be developed more densely. But I should mention that KS is proposing some all affordable units and they've done some analysis and floated in the community some significantly taller towers there that would be against this zoning. They would have the option of 201H project since it is all affordable. But they'd also have the option of asking council to change this zoning. We don't have an official opinion for that, but it's likely that because it's all affordable, if the community supported that, that would be something that would be listened to well. Next. A deep dive quickly on sewer. I mostly want you to know that there is a long list, roughly $500 million of sewer projects that are real projects. These are part of the $5 billion plus consent decree project list, which ENV has kept moving on time and on schedule. A lot of those are completed, like in Ala Moana and Sand Island, which allows all the development you're seeing in Ala Moana right now. But working from this end, it's starting at Honolulu plant through East Kapolei and Waipahu. The project list, Waipahu to Halava, is programmed with funding and city CIP budgets for essentially the next 12 to 14 years of construction. Director Uchida has also been working with ENV and congressional staff to see if some federal funds, and with the state agencies at DOH to see if federal funds are available to accelerate some of those. Next. You can skip by this map. I think people understand the sewer goes kind of along across the top of the Pearl Harbor. So there's all these on the list. I just bolded, again, roughly $500 million, 482 million. You see the end date, estimated years of construction. So they'd be in service the year after these, basically starting construction like next year, 2023 through about 2034. Next slide. And I'm going to and there's about 15 million in nearer term starting next year in the Evil A area. We'll talk about when we get there next. So Ruby, just click through pretty rapidly these. I want folks to see that these are real projects with planning and design underway. The dollars are there. It basically expands the trunk sewers and new trunk sewers, pump stations, all the way to get through.
Harrison, I think we lost your audio there.
Yeah, you're muted, Harrison.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I have my notes on top of the keyboard and I actually muted myself. So anyway, this gets us up to Pearl City. I'll talk about the Halava ones. This package, about $500 million, gets us all the way to Halava with capacity to do the full Halava improvements. Next slide. I just want to add too that we do have programmed the Pearlridge Bus Transfer Center. We required the land around the Pearlridge station, and DTS is planning a essentially temporary interim bus and multimodal center there that will actually be a feeder for the buses that continue on towards downtown and up Malka until rail goes all the way. And that's programmed and in process. Next. Okay, so back to you, Rodney.
Okay, thank you, Harrison. Okay, the next area is the Halava Stadium TOD priority area. And so all of you know where this is, but we have a number of projects, lots of state lands, so DAGs, public housing, and HHFDC in particular. So we'll proceed with their presentations. So first up, Stadium Authority and Department of Accounting and General Services, Chris Kinimaka.
Aloha chairs, vice chairs, and members of both committees on housing. The new, Ruby, slide 1, please. The new Aloha Stadium Entertainment District will create a vibrant live, work, play, and thrive destination on Oahu, with a new multi-purpose stadium serving as a centerpiece for mixed-use real estate development on the existing 98-acre Aloha Stadium site located in Halava. As depicted in this conceptual programmatic master plan that formed the basis for our environmental impact statement, this mixed-use development embraces a concept set forth in the Halava Area TOD plan adopted in 2020 to provide a walkable community with multimodal access and increased density offset with open green gathering spaces and shared facilities for community, educational, cultural, and healthful enjoyment. Traffic is directed off surrounding streets into the district, where residents and visitors would then flow into the many planned parking structures within the district. Multimodal access is key, and pedestrian overlap with vehicular traffic is minimized. Next. Development is progressing via 2 separate procurement efforts. The stadium project is being pursued as a public-private partnership, design, build, finance, maintain agreement on roughly 23 acres as shown in the blue shaded area on this map. The real estate project will encompass roughly 73 to 75 acres balance of the district as shown in the lavender shaded areas, with development in phases anticipated to start on the left end of the map between the Halava rail station and the new Aloha Stadium locations. In our concept, development would then proceed likely as shown, moving clockwise by the different shaded buildings in 5-year increments, with each phase including residential, commercial, retail, and community spaces completing in 20 years. Of course, the final plan will be established in partnership with the selected real estate developer and with community and stakeholder engagement providing active guidance. Next. The key project features include, for the stadium, a downsized venue replete with modern upgrades to enhance the user experience, to support a wider variety of sports, concerts, and events, and to generate increased revenue more efficiently all year round. The real estate project provides for long-term master planning of this development, which would complement the stadium and align with the vision of transforming the site into a mixed-use live, work, play, and thrive district. Next. This is a daytime aerial conceptual rendering that demonstrates development within reasonable height limits and density to respect the topography of the site and to reunite with the surrounding community for 24/7 enjoyment. This is how we envision replacing the fenced-in sea of asphalt parking that divides the present community with welcoming inroads, allowing for dynamic community revitalization to the benefit of residents and visitors alike. This master plan includes residential housing, commercial and retail space, and a business hotel or two, depending on the market absorption, as well as gathering and community spaces. It is not a luxury resort development, nor does it include a strip mall with its typical surface parking. Next. Our project schedule for the 3 primary efforts is reflected here. For the stadium, we already have 3 priority listed respondents who are eagerly waiting in the wings for us to issue the stadium request for proposals. We have our technical and legal requirements met, and we await the green light from our financial authorities to move ahead. If we get the green light in the coming weeks, we would look forward to evaluation and award by the end of this year. This past Monday, we were happy to announce the 2 shortlisted real estate development teams, and we look forward to engaging with them next week. We also anticipate evaluation and award of this project by the end of this year. Under this schedule, construction on either project could begin as early as 2023. And last but not least, we are working to publish our final programmatic environmental impact statement and getting the governor's acceptance by the close of the first quarter of this year. Next. On behalf of our NACID team, we wish to share that this endeavor is not just a game, it's an experience. So please visit us at nacid.hawaii.gov for more information. Mahalo.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Okay, next up, Hawaii Public Housing Authority, Kevin Ojay.
Thank you, Rodney. Aloha, chairs, representatives, and senators. My name is Kevin Ojay. I'm the redevelopment officer for the HPHA. HPHA's Pu'uwaimomi property occupies 12 acres located directly adjacent to the Aloha Stadium Heart Station. The site is currently approved with 260 federally funded public housing units contained in 27 2- and 3-story buildings. Constructed in 1969, these units are now nearing the end of their intended functional life. The site has the potential to support 1,200 to 1,500 new affordable housing units, including the 1-for-1 replacement of the existing public housing stock. The agency was recently awarded a $400,000 TOD CIP planning grant for this project, and we are grateful to Governor Ige, the legislature, and the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development for making this grant possible. The grant will allow us to begin preliminary master planning for the project much sooner than our previously anticipated schedule. This site is considered an especially attractive redevelopment candidate due to the higher density available under the city and county's Halava area TOD plan and its proximity immediately south of the Aloha Stadium, Heart Station, and the proposed NACID redevelopment. This is an important project for the agency and the state and will require continued interagency coordination and collaboration. HPHA anticipates working closely with DAGS, the NACID development team, and the OPSD to ensure that redevelopment of the site achieves state TOD objectives. Thanks, Rodney. Back to you.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Exciting stuff. Hawaii Housing and Finance Development Corporation, Randy.
Thank you, Rodney. Next slide. Okay, the Halewiliko Highlands project is a senior affordable rental housing project located in Aiea, just mauka of the Aiea Public Library. The site is where the former Aiea sugar mill was once located. The project will consist of 139 for-rent units. All units will be affordable and will be as the listed affordability breakdown. Scheduled completion is February 2024. The developer for this project is Halewiliko Highlands LP, a single-purpose entity established for this project by Hui Kauhale Inc., EAH Inc. Next slide. The Halava View 2 and the Halava View 3 projects are being developed simultaneously together with one another and will consist of 2 towers as shown in this rendering. The Halava View 2 project will consist of 156 for-rent units, all units for which will be affordable. The breakdown of the number of units at the various AMI levels are shown here. Scheduled completion is June 2024. Developer is Halava View 2 LP, a single-purpose entity established for this project by Hawaii Pacific LLC, Hawaii Community Development Board, and Mark Development. Next. Halava View 3 and 2 are located adjacent to Kamehameha Highway, slightly less than 1/2 mile south of Aloha Stadium. Halava View 3 will consist of 146 for-rent units. All units will be affordable. The breakdown of the number of units at the various AMI levels are shown here. Scheduled completion June 24. Next slide.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, Randy. Next up, City Harrison will summarize some of the TOD planning and infrastructure in the area.
Yeah, next, please, Ruby. So I think people are very familiar with the planning area. When we did the original TOD plan, we worked very closely with DAGS and Stadium Authority and other state agencies by HPHA, and basically their concepts are baked into the TOD plan, which City Council adopted. We drew several things like this, you know, different alternatives, but we were very clear. Next slide. Very clear in the actual adopted plan that it's really just color blobs, because we're not saying you need to follow anything like the layout that we had. Just follow the TOD plan principles, which their consultants have been doing as they go along, and that's also baked into, I think, their RFP. I did want to mention the height. So it's a very flexible framework for those master plans. The plan also includes properties like the Ice Palace and the old Kmart site, in addition to the public housing site. But we asked the agencies what heights they really wanted to focus on, and the 250 near the stadium, near the station, is really about the max for the market. There was some consideration of higher heights, but this is also right on the edge of the airport area that requires some consideration of whether it's too high for the flight paths. The 150 foot on the right near that whole area, that was increased in an amendment to the draft TOD plan at the request of DAGS and Stadium Authority. We originally had stepped it down to 90 feet in the area farthest away from the stadium, and the council agreed to increase it to 150, which was their request. Next. And similar, there's some sewer improvements from Waimalu, which is, you know, just the other side of Aiea Town Center. Another, you know, $70 million project for new rehab replacement of the trunk sewers towards Lava. Next one. And then the Halava pump station force main improvements, 20 million for that. You can see that the out years of these, construction ending 2033, so roughly a dozen years from now. And it will, if you notice the bold print underneath, it'll relocate the force main out of the existing Aloha Stadium parking lot to allow for the planned stadium development. Once DAGS has the development team in place and the engineers really look at it, it might be possible for the developer to do a portion of that on-site work so that we're not waiting for this particular project. Those are details, but this is programmed to be completed and get the capacity to the stadium in roughly a dozen years from now. Next. And then just one more pump station upgrade. There's actually 2 pump stations in the area. And then one more. I highlight this potential. Staff, PSDS staff asked me to mention the Navy project. This should have big discussion draft written all over the whole thing, because I don't want to be speaking for the Navy, but it's in our draft airport TOD plan, the last TOD plan that is up at council right now. This area is cited for development, but a couple of years ago, Navy started to look at significantly more height and density. I think they looked at Halava and thought why do we do something like that? So this area is included in our draft airport area TOD plan. Navy's consultants did look and talk with city departments, and there's significant infrastructure deficiencies and costs that are not in our current planning because we had much less density appropriated here. But I do want to mention that I checked with Navy staff recently. The project is currently on hold. I think partly economic conditions and partly, administrative review. But this is a potential development similar in size to the Aloha Stadium. We did also recommend that they talk with the stadium and their consultants once the development team is on board to see if a batch plant on site could serve both of those entities. But that's all just subjective now. I just want this kind of on your radar screen. Back to you, Rodney.
Okay, thank you, Harrison. Okay, next. Okay, the next TOD priority area extends from Kalihi through Iwilei, Kapolama. And so there's a lot of state lands here. One of the significant sites we're not incorporating at this time is the OCCC Oahu Community Correctional Center site, which is pending relocation. And so that site, of course, is to be determined in terms of planning. But other than that, there are significant public housing, Hawaiian homes, and HHFDC projects that we'd like to cover at this time. Okay, so we'll begin with Hawaii Public Housing Authority. Kevin.
Thanks again, Rodney. As many of you know, our administrative campus is located on North School Street in Kalihi, where we have great access to public transportation, and we're 3/4 of a mile from 2 future rail stations within the PUC. Unfortunately, our campus, which was built in the 1950s, spans nearly 6 acres. It's sprawling, inefficient, and outdated. To address this, we partnered with Retirement Housing Foundation to repurpose the site for the development of affordable housing. RHF is one of the largest nonprofit organizations in the United States devoted to building and preserving affordable housing. The approved project will include 800 age-restricted affordable housing units serving the 30 to 60% AMI demographic. There will be no family units or public housing units included in the project. The project, which is expected to be completed in 3 phases over 8 to 10 years, will also include 10,000 square feet of retail and commercial space. 250 units will be completed in phase 1, 250 in phase 2, 300 units in the final phase. Phase 1 vertical construction includes a 15-story tower, 6-story mid-rise, and an adjacent 5-story parking structure. The project will provide solar energy production, community gardens, bicycle and pedestrian pathways, gathering, exercise, and open air spaces, and a community resource center dedicated to supportive social services for the project's elderly residents. Governor Ige accepted the environmental impact for the statement for the project in June of 2018. The City and County of Honolulu City Council approved the project's 2018 zoning package last November. That was as Resolution 2251 CD1 FD1. Which provided the project approximately $9 million in fee and other waivers. The Hawaii Housing Finance Development Corporation, our sister agency, approved the project's application for low-income housing tax credits, rental housing revolving fund, and hula May bonds at its board meeting October 14th last year. Construction documentation for phase 1 has been completed and submitted to the City and County Department of Planning and Permitting for review, with third-party review also underway. Retirement Housing intends to distribute an RFP to secure lender and investor interest by the end of February this month, and general contractor bidding is expected in March. The first phase of the project is expected to break ground this summer. This project is an excellent example of redeveloping an underutilized state land asset to facilitate the delivery of urgently needed new affordable rental housing units. Thanks, Rodney. Guess we're going to carry on. Kahil Park Terrace, low rises and homes. Kahil Park sits on a 22-acre site located just over half a mile from the Middle Street Station. The HPHA entered into a master development agreement with the Michaels organization in 2011 to redevelop the property in 2 phases. Michaels and the HPHA completed the first phase in 2013 with the revitalization of 555 residential units at Kahil Park Towers. As part of this transaction, 58 units were converted using low-income housing tax credits. 150 units were converted to voucher subsidy under HUD's Section 8 program, and 347 renovated units remained as public housing. Those 347 units were recently converted to housing choice vouchers under HUD's rental assistance demonstration program. This transaction recently closed in December last year, and it was the first RAD transaction successfully completed in the state of Hawaii. Phase 2 of the project will focus on the redevelopment of the balance of the Kahil Park neighborhood, specifically the Kahil Park homes, which were constructed in 1953, and the Kahil Park Terrace low-rises, which were constructed in 1965. The Kahil Park Terrace and low-rise properties are located adjacent to one another along Minapuni and Ahonui streets, and they contain a total of 174 federally subsidized low-income public housing units. Phase 2 will include the one-for-one replacement of the existing public housing units and the delivery of an additional 475 to 625 new affordable housing units. The development team is currently conducting the required environmental reviews, gross massing and refinement of the original proposed master plan, and civil and other engineering studies that will be required to pursue the HRS 201 entitlement and zoning approvals, which we anticipate starting that process probably in the fall. HPHA's Kamehameha and Ka'ahumana properties are located less than a third of a mile from two planned HART rail stations. The combined site totals 24 acres and is currently improved with 376 federally subsidized public housing units. They're contained in 47 two-story buildings constructed in 1958 and 1996. The site's also nearly contiguous to Kalihikai Elementary School, Kalakaua Middle School, Kalakaua District Park, Farrington High School, and the Honolulu Community College is located less than a mile away. This site has the potential to support well over 2,000 affordable housing units, including the one-for-one replacement of the existing public housing units. This redevelopment creates a unique opportunity to combine resources and collaborate with our city and county and DOD colleagues to potentially also upgrade schools and parks to benefit the broader community. And if available, the agency will be prepared to submit for a proposal to OPSD for a CIP planning grant this fiscal year, so we can accelerate the master planning of this project as well. Last but not least is Mayor Wright Homes, located on 15 prime acres in the PUC, about a block and a half from the planned HART Evilay station. This site contains 364 federally funded low-income public housing units that were built between 1953 and 1965. Nearing 70 years old, these units have exceeded their useful life and are beyond rehabilitation. Despite this, Mayor Wright is currently home to approximately 1,300 residents, nearly half of whom are under 20 years old. Given the existing resident population profile that will be impacted, careful phasing and execution of the redevelopment effort will be essential. The proposed redevelopment plan calls for an overall program of 2,448 new housing units and up to 80,000 square feet of commercial space on the site. This would include the one-for-one replacement of the public housing, and the anticipated development timeline would be 10 to 12 years. HPHA worked with Lowney Architects to develop several gross massing designs for the project that you are now viewing. These massive scenarios are based on proposed redevelopment plans for the planned density available under the accepted environmental impact study. These designs have been developed to provide the community with a sense of what's possible on the site, considering the project's density goals. They will also be a key driver of the zoning and entitlement process. Governor Ige accepted the state HRS 343 environmental impact statement for the project in 2018. And because the project anticipates federal funding, a NEPA environmental review is also substantially completed. Having the environmental studies and massing plans in place will allow the agency to hit the ground running once a replacement developer has been procured for the first phase of the project later this year. Phase 1 expects to deliver 350 to 400 units of desperately needed housing, and getting shovel in the ground to start construction of these units remains a top priority for our agency. That's all I have, Rodney. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up, HHFDC, Randy. We are running a little behind time, so if you can go quickly, that would be appreciated.
Certainly, Rodney. HHFTC has several projects in the subject area. First being the Lillia Civic Center project. This project is located in the corner of King Street, Ivaley Road, and across A'ala Park. The land parcel was set aside to DAGS via Executive Order 4131 in October 2005. This joint HHFTC DAGS project is a mixed-use project that is scheduled to include multifamily, civic center, office, and parking components. Based on our planning due diligence, it's estimated at this time the project could support approximately 300 living units. HHFTC plans to issue an RFP for master planning of the site and development of the residential component based on a 75-year lease. Next slide, please. The Hawai'i Senior Project is located in Chinatown on River Street. The project consists of 155 senior for-rent units. 100% of the units will be affordable in accordance with the affordability breakdown listed on this slide. Project completion is scheduled for April 2023. Developer, Hawai'i Senior Development LLC, the Michaels organization. Next. Hawking Holly. This project consists of repurposing a previously commercial building for residential use. The Hawking building is located downtown on the corner of King and Nuuanu Avenue. After the renovation is complete, there will be 39 for-rent units. 100% of the units will be affordable. 4 units at 30% AMGI and 35 units at 50% AMGI. Scheduled completion is July 2023. Developer is Hawking Buildings LP, Skylar Pacific LLC, Hawaii Pacific LLC, Hawaii Assisted Housing Inc. Next. The Kokua Senior Project is located in the downtown Honolulu at the corner of Beretania and Alakea Streets. The multi-story building will provide 222 for-rent units, 100% of these units being affordable at rents reflective of 30% AMGI and 60% AMGI. Scheduled completion of the project is August 2023. Developer Alakea Senior LP, which is a collaboration of High Ridge Costa Development Company LLC, Affordable Housing and Economic Development Foundation, and Coastal Rim Properties Inc. Next slide. The Pauahi Kapuna Hale is located in Chinatown on North Pauahi Street. This project consists of conducting a major renovation to an aging facility to extend its usable life for decades ahead. The 47 for-rent units will be 100% affordable at 60% AMGI level. Scheduled completion January 2023. Pauahi developer is Pauahi RHF Partners LP. Next slide. Okay, this project, the lack of sufficient infrastructure is oftentimes the limiting factor in permitting the development of new or redevelopment of existing parcels for affordable housing. In the immediate Ivaley Kapolama area, the state of Hawaii has several planned affordable housing projects that will require upgrades to the existing infrastructure in order for them to be built. The projects include the Lillia Civic Center, Kukui Gardens, and Mayor Wright Homes. Additionally, other landowners in the area, such as Kamehameha Schools, has plans for redeveloping their properties into affordable housing. This project consists of preparing a comprehensive master plan to identify the infrastructure upgrades required to facilitate the current and future affordable housing development and other planned developments in the Ivaley Kapolama area. The infrastructure addressed in the master plan includes sewer, water, drainage, electrical, communications, and access requirements. The study area for the master plan consists of lands bound by Waikamilo Road, Halona Street, H1 Freeway, River Street, and down to Nimitz Highway as shown on this map. The infrastructure master plan is scheduled to be complete in May 2022, and the EIS for the master plan is scheduled for completion in February 2023. Thank you, Rodney.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Harrison will summarize some of the city and county's TOD efforts in this region.
Sure. Next, we can do the quick version. People are very familiar. Next one.
Harrison, you're muted.
too much going back and forth. And so the area in yellow is generally Iwalei and Kapalama area. Next one. This is from the original, this one right now in tan is from the original TOD plan. And I'm going to show you that area. And then the next one, we just updated this last year to show significantly more density. If you look at this, you'd see that there's much more density on Mayorite in this one rather than the one that was done many years ago. This includes the HPHA properties across from Farrington High School, a lot more down happening in Middle Street, a lot more density generally throughout. So you've seen that in all the TOD areas. And then this is what's being plugged into the infrastructure master plan. Next. People remember the Kapalama Canal Linear Park. We just finished the EIS. We've applied to FEMA for some grant money to do the next phase, to update the EIS and some technical parts to qualify for potential construction money from FEMA for a big portion of this. Next. And then there's the sewer improvements here, much lower scale than what's needed to get to Halava. There's an existing package, about $15 million that should be completed in about the next 3 to 4 years. Next. As well as some minor improvements. I want to give a lot of credit to ENV because they've really been working how to figure out how to serve the first phase of Mayorite and the first phase of School Street by redirecting some of the sewers to one of the recently completed pipes along Waikimilo. So a lot of this is really just moving things along to get ahead of the next phase of development. Next. And then I just want to mention electrical. This is being covered in the study that Randy mentioned. This is from, which is not really ready draft. This is from our assessment in 2018 with the same consultants. But I like to say that electric is the new sewer. It's really, the electric capacity is more of an obstacle in some places than the sewer. And so that's being covered by design in the infrastructure master plan. Back to you, Rodney.
Okay. Thank you, Harrison. Okay, finally, we do want to cover some of the projects from downtown Kaka'ako to Ala Moana Center. A lot of these are private, HFTC financed. But yeah, there's still significant affordable components in this region. Okay. We'll start off with the HCDA, Hawaii Community Development Authority. Deepak Nupani, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Rodney. Deepak Nupani, I'm the Executive Director of HCDA. And thank you, Chair Nakamura and Chang and Vice Chair Hashimoto and Kanoa for the opportunity. Just want to briefly go over all the projects in Kaka'ako. What we have on the left, top left of that slide is a map of Kaka'ako Community Development District showing all residential developments, including market as well as affordable. So the light blue and dark blue are all affordable projects, light blue being affordable rental projects, and dark blue being affordable sale project. The green is a mix of market and affordable and workforce housing, and then the orange is all market housing. And just showing some of the pictures, of the project themselves. Next slide, Rodney. Next slide, I wanted to show you a summary, at a glance, what we're calling it, of the development in Kaka'ako. New housing development in Kaka'ako has been, up until now, about 12,598 units. That's all new, not counting the existing housing that was already in Kaka'ako. Out of that, 4,249 units are affordable. Of that, 1,380 units are rental units, affordable rental units. And of those rental units, 489 units are senior rental units. On the right side, I have listed it by projects, looking at whether it's affordable rental or for sale, and also the AMI. Typically, the private development that had affordable housing requirement, we call it the reserved housing requirement, they are typically for sale products. And over the years, sister agency, HHFDC and HCDA have developed jointly a lot of affordable rental housing in the district. Next slide, Rodney. Just to continue, it's in the last slide. And I think I added one more project that's coming up with, that's a privately developed by Howard Hughes, Ulana Ad Ward, within walking distance of the Kaka'ako Transit Station. And that adds 699 units. So once that's built, the total housing, affordable housing units in Kaka'ako is going to be close to 5,000 units. Next slide, Rodney. And just wanted to make a note that these three projects were on the TOD list beginning, and I believe Rodney and Ruby took it off the list because it's already constructed and people are already moved in. And those projects are jointly developed by HSFDC and HCDA, with HSFDC providing the funding and HCDA providing the land and management of the project. Those are Nohonahale on Cook Street with 110 rental units, micro units. It's a pilot project, one of its kind. It has 110 micro units, no parking, and the first and the only vertical photovoltaic system in the state. And Olaka Ilima, 84 housing units developed by ArtSpace, and Hale Kibalo, 128 rental units and developed by Stanford Core. And that Hale Kibalo is more like a family rental project with a lot of 3-bedroom units, which is typically you don't see in affordable housing projects. So thank you very much for the opportunity to provide the update. And HCDA is looking forward to developing more affordable housing in the district. My planning team is working on amending Mauka area rules to encourage affordable housing by providing more density, bringing it in line with a similar program like what HSFDC has in 206, 201H38. Providing additional density, but tying it with the developer being able to provide affordable housing. So with that, thank you very much, Rodney.
Okay, thank you, Deepa. Okay, HHFDC, Randy, if you can quickly summarize the projects.
Sure. There's been quite a lot of activity regarding affordable housing in the Kaka'ako Ala Moana area. First, the 690 Pohukaina Street project, located 1/2 block away from the Hart Kaka'ako rail station site. Executive Order 4533 set aside the project land to HHFDC for affordable housing and educational purposes. HHFDC issued an RFP in November 2021 for the master planning of the parcel and development of the affordable housing and parking components. The land will be leased to a developer for 75 years. As per executive order, a portion of the land will be reserved for future development of an educational facility by DOE. Construction of the project is targeted to start in December 2023. Next, please. This is a conceptual site plan of the 690 Pohukaina site. It's located directly next to the Mother Waldron Park and the Halikuwila Place parking structure. So there's going to be a residential and parking component and an educational component as such. Thank you. Next slide. The Ililani project is located in Kaka'ako on Keawe and Halikuwila streets and is less than 1/2 block away from the Hart Kaka'ako rail station site. The project will have 328 for sale units. 197 of the units, which constitutes 60% of all the units, will be affordable. Affordability criteria for the units will be between 80% and 140% AMGI. Project is scheduled for completion in April 2021. Next slide. Okay. 803 Waimanu. Construction of the 803 Waimanu project was completed just January of 2022. The project consists of 153 for sale units, 50% of the units, which translates to 77 units, are HHFDC affordable units. The affordability criteria for the HHFDC affordable units corresponds to 80% to 100% AMGI. Next, please. Oh, back one. Thank you. The Alder Street mixed-use project is centrally located in Honolulu and is bound on 3 sides by Alder, Elm, and Pi'ikoi streets. The land was set aside to HHFDC via Executive Order 4598 for mixed-use residential and family court services. HHFDC issued an RFP for the development of the 1.45-acre property. The project will be complete and will provide 200 for-rent units. 100% of the units will be affordable. Construction will be completed in May of 2022. Developer is MK Elder Street LLC, MK Alder Street Partners LLP, and Kobayashi Group. Next slide. This is a rendering of the Alder Street project when it will be complete, a tower and a lower section for parking. Next slide. The central Ala Moana was recently completed at the end of 2021, and we're closing out the project now. The 512 for sale unit project is located in the corner of Kapolei Boulevard and Konaiki Street, and is directly across the street from the Ala Moana Shopping Center. 310 units, which comprises 60% of all the units, are affordable. The affordable units are limited to 100% to 140% AMGI limits. The developer was Samku Hawai'i LLC. Next slide. Okay. The Ohana Hale project is located in Makali Mo'iliili area on the corner of Pumihana and Alderoba Streets. The project is planned to provide 180 for-rent units. 60% to 100% of the units will be affordable. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present to you our update on our projects we are working on. Back to you, Rodney.
Hey, thank you, Randy. DOE, Roy Ikeda.
Thanks, Rodney. Okay, to support the growth in the Kaka'ako area, DOE is planning for the 690 Pahukana site that Randy just spoke about a few minutes ago. The educational component is being reconsidered by the Department of Education leadership at the moment. A few years ago, there was a conceptual design for a high density vertical elementary school in the area. We're reconsidering that and possibly looking at a hybrid elementary school to include possibly a distance learning hub to be a part of that. So that educational component that's a part of, and this rendering that's on the screen right now is a little, the conceptual rendering here is a little different than what I think Randy showed earlier, but is generally the same layout with the residential component, education adjacent to Mother Waldron Park. This is something that we are in coordination with HHFDC as well as the School Facilities Authority moving forward. We will be, again, we're going to be looking more carefully at some of the developments in the area, the high density towers that are coming up, and that will also drive our decision-making on the educational component itself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Roy. Harrison?
Yeah, just a couple more slides next. People are very familiar with the area. Just wanted to show this one. This is really everything in gold is the projects that have approved under TOD zoning. The blue is the state 201H projects that were already covered. This is clearly where the private sector has been wanting to build and providing that density. We are getting a lot of improvements in the streets and some of the connectivity is part of those developments. Next. I just want to add that we are in planning. DTS is currently doing an alternatives analysis for the Ala Moana Transit Plaza, which is essentially a mobility hub near and around the proposed rail station. And that's in planning. We are considering and looking at the potential to build housing above that as it when the alternative analysis is done. Next. I just wanted to mention some of those rail access projects. There's a lot of small projects that are being funded by city for that connectivity around some of the rail stations, a lot more than this, but I just highlighted 3 of them. Next, and finally, just to close on something new, we just issued and completed the phase 2 of the TOD Wayfinding Master Plan. I'm bringing it up here because this is future infrastructure. We expect some city investment of these on public streets, but suggest to the state agencies that as their developers build, we have detailed manuals on how to design and construct and attach all of these signs. And we're glad to be providing those. Right now, just the neighborhood maps are going into the rail stations under construction, but we'll be programming money to gradually add the wayfinding stuff so that, you know, tourists out exploring the rail can find where they're going and get back to the rail station. Thank you so much for your attention. Back to you, Rodney.
Thank you, Harrison.
Rodney, we have about a bit over 20 minutes left in the program, and we did want to set some time aside for questions and answers. So maybe if you guys go for another 5 minutes, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Okay, great. Yeah, we'll try to be as quickly as we can. DOT at Sniffen.
Yeah, just real quick, you know, for DOT, we're making sure that we use our resources to incentivize impacts to Hawaii's #1 priority, affordable housing or housing in general. So we're working with state agencies that are on the TOD Council to see how we can support with infrastructure to those areas that the state put a lot of money into. We're also working with developers to partner in developing more affordable housing sooner using our resources. We all know that infrastructure is expensive and is what's holding up a lot of developments moving forward. So if we can trade out infrastructure that the state can put in for facilities or affordable housing that developers can build, it helps everybody. I mean, developers already have their land entitled, they already have infrastructure in place, so they can do things a lot faster than we can if we partner with them. So that's how we're looking at the Ever region. We're looking at building out infrastructure on H1 to make sure we can incentivize more affordable housing in D.R. Horton's facility. We're looking at the facility right on Kolakai Parkway and on Farrington Highway to ensure that we put 300 units in that area within the next 2 or 3 years. So those are the types of deals that we're looking for in utilizing the funding that we have throughout our system. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Okay, I'll go quickly through some car-to-ride infrastructure needs and cost estimates. For the 3 priority areas, we did do very detailed, fairly detailed analysis of infrastructure needs based on planned land uses. So this graphic shows the existing funded as well as unfunded costs requirements to do infrastructure upgrades. Next. So for East Kapolei, this graphic shows, you know, what's required in the next 10 years, 969 million, next 20 years after, and total 2.6 million. Yeah, you can go quickly through. And so stadiums, similarly, we have fairly detailed regional as well as project-specific infrastructure needs that would be, of course, this would be assumed by the stadium in terms of what they're doing now, largely for their planning. And then for Iwilei Kapolama, similarly, fairly good analyses that's being supplemented by their infrastructure master plan. And all told, in terms of the amount of infrastructure costs that are needed, so it's a 4.9 billion total, and you know, of which 3.2 billion are unfunded. So this is sort of the gap in infrastructure needs. And then our biggest challenges, as shown by this graphic, is first of all, funding and financing for the improvements. Infrastructure capacity is, you know, clearly the need. And then finally, though, and importantly, there's also agencies that need staff capacity and, you know, staff resources to implement. So even if you have money, the agencies still themselves need to be able to move the projects forward. And so those are the biggest challenges we face. Develop a conceptual timeline just to show that, A lot of these things take time. Kaka'ako was developed in 30 to 40 years. Similarly, the villages in Kapolei City. So from land, funding, master planning, EIS, funding and financing, design and construction, could take 10 years easily. And so the keys, of course, is financing and whether and how much infrastructure capacity is required. Okay, so that concludes our presentation. Thank you for your attention. We did want to give you kind of lay of the land, and apologies for taking so much time to do so. So with that, we'll stand available to entertain any questions.
Thank you very much, Rodney and Ruby and Carl, for putting this presentation together and all of the state agencies. There was a lot of information to cover in a short time. We want to open it up for questions. Does anyone have a question for the team? Yes, Senator Chang.
So much, Chair Nakamura, for organizing such a informative briefing. And I also wanted to personally thank all the state and county agencies that were involved. I really learned a lot. And so I'll just try to distill my question to just one, which is, earlier on, you estimated that a certain number of housing units would be produced, by 2049, 48,000, which is about 1,800 units a year. We're currently estimated to need more on the order of 6 or even 10,000 units a year. So this is clearly not enough to provide enough supply to meet demand. Is there some agency whose responsibility it is to say, we actually need 3, 4, 5 times the amount of housing construction. Let's see if we can put more supply on these TOD units.
Well, all of the agencies are kind of separately working on and implementing their master plans. We have a lot of, projects that, have not even begun to make headway in terms of pre-planning or master planning. And so those certainly, can use initiation. And so we have been blessed by the legislature giving us some seed money that we can do some TOD, start some of these TOD plannings. But in terms of, expediting, I did mention, although we recognize the need, we do have limited staff capacities to implement. Even if you had a lot of money, it's not that easy to spend it either. So, defer to some of the other agencies who wish to also chime in on that. But certainly there are, as you have, can have seen from our presentation, a lot of potential initiatives and substantial possibilities to address, your numbers that we have just on our tabulation of affordable over the next 30 years. We have 25,000 plus, with a total of close to 50,000 just from those that are currently on the books.
Thank you. Any other questions? Senator, did I see your hand, Senator Moriwaki?
Hi, aloha, mahalo. And thank you for everybody for good presentations. My question again goes back to maybe building on Senator Chang's question is what is affordable? And when we're talking about affordable units, I know it ranges from 120, 140% AMI all the way to 60% AMI. Have you, Rodney, or Office of Planning and Sustainable Development, have a chart of here are all the developments on the books and what is the quote affordable? Because we've always had this question about what is a definition of affordable. I'd like to see that as well, because the demand is in the lower range, not the higher range.
Okay. Denise, would you like to take a whack at that?
I'm
not sure Denise is on. Okay, anyone else from either HHFDC? But in general, yes, the affordability definition the state uses 140% area median income. Randy, did you want to comment?
Yes, the area median income levels are federally provided numbers for the various areas like Honolulu, Maui County, so forth. And the generally accepted number they use is 30% of your income can be used to pay for housing. So the rents that are correlate to, say, 100% AMI is if you make $100,000 a year, you shouldn't be paying more than $30,000 a year for rent, for housing purposes.
So is there any way that the state across the counties, and again, it's in collaboration with the counties, how we can get a fix on that? We know that we need these housing units, and but are we really building the housing units for where the highest demands are? And that's the most costly.
Okay, Denise, did you want to comment?
Sorry, I just got back to my desk.
Okay. Yeah, the question was relative to affordable housing. What is the threshold, and how do you make more units affordable? Is that did you want to repeat your question, Senator?
Yeah, sure. I think Randy was saying, well, the AMI differs according to the geographic location, but what we're looking at is that there's need for housing, but it's mostly at the lower end. The demand is at the lower end, maybe 100% AMI and below. But a lot of the housing that's being, we only have, like in Kaka'ako, for example, HCDA has 140, 120% AMI as the threshold. But how can we build more housing in the lower end, which is more costly? And do you have numbers on that? How many units are being built at that lower levels?
So thank you for the question, Senator. So for HHFDC involved projects, the majority are rental projects, and they are at the lower end because most of our projects are built using LIHTC program. So even in our projections in our annual report, I believe 75% are rentals. And I would venture to say that that entire 75% of the 7,500 that we're projecting is going to be using LIHTC. So it's 60% AMI and below for most of them anyway. Now, so most of the projects that we do are at that target market. And you're correct, according to the SMS study for 2019, there's about 35,000 units needed for those making at the median level. So about $106,000 for Honolulu versus the ones making above 100% of the AMI is more like 13 or 14,000 units. But that's what our programs are already geared for. If you really want to help that market, you need to do something about the bond cap. So which is why I believe you have that bond cap bill. That's the most important measure for affordable rentals this session, is to have a statutory allocation for housing, because right now there is none. Housing gets leftover bond cap, and we wait for everybody else to decide what they want to do first, and then housing gets the leftovers.
Okay, Dean, did you want to add anything else, Minakami?
No, I think Denise, you covered that very well. So, and I'll just note that at the lower levels, a higher level of subsidies required for, especially the 60% and below, you really need a large subsidy. So the availability of financing is a limiting factor.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. This presentation shows that there's a lot of efforts in place to develop all along the transit line at various stations, and that's good to see. What do you think it would help these developments move quicker? What do you think will be the key to developing on these sites and moving the program faster?
Okay, that's a very good question. I'm open for anyone of the state or city or anybody.
Rep. Nakamura, that's a very good question. For HFTC projects, I will say that infrastructure capacity has been a limiting factor for us. We have had several parcels of land which we are ready to go on, and it's always has been infrastructure capacity that has kept us back.
Okay.
So thanks to the city, they are providing capacity now, so that is helping us move forward.
Okay, and I think it would be helpful then for every agency to identify the limiting infrastructure that's preventing you from moving forward. And I think a lot of that has been identified today, but as you know, to your specific projects, it would be good to also see it from your perspective.
Okay, anyone else want to chime in, Calvert or Hakeem?
Yeah, thank you. From the HPH's perspective, another issue is, Denise has mentioned it, is the bond cap, but also the availability of LIHTC. What we found ourselves, let me just give you a quick example. School Street, 800 units. The developer is ready and able to do all 800 units in one phase, but we found ourselves have to cut it into smaller pieces so we can accommodate the availability of tax credit on bond cap. I can say that about every single project that we are having. They're all large in scale, and we have to actually wait for another project or for another year and phase it that way instead of going full speed ahead.
Right.
Thank you again.
Support our PAB bills then.
Okay,
we have a couple of them in the works. And
Rep. Nakamura,
yes.
Again, this is mostly a conversation among the state agencies, but since many of them might be loath to say, give my agency more money, I'll speak just as a taxpayer, not as much for the city. And if I was looking for a simple solution to how do we get more of the 60% and below built, when I was looking at the recent awarding, I think the quality, whatever that plan is, where that rates all the low-income project for financing, the point spread between the winners and losers was tiny. So, you know, a layman would look at them and say, hey, they all look pretty good, and you're really just having to skim the cream off the top, and everything else is really good too. So if I was looking at a place to throw money, those are all projects to submit something like that. They've got designs, they've got some prelim engineering, you know, it's something that's doable. If that had more funding, in addition to the low-income housing tax credit, sometimes they need more infrastructure. I'm not saying give the agency more, but you've got projects that are waiting, that have to wait till next cycle. You may want to look at funding whatever that stream is that could, those that are ready to go.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Calvert, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, maybe as a segue from, you know, what Dean and Denise and Harrison have brought up, I'll say from the University of Hawaii perspective, as a case study goes for our University West Oahu development, which we have been trying to develop for at least the last 8 years, not asking the state for monies for that development. And the issue there from a development perspective has been entitlements and infrastructure costs on vacant land at the TOD sites. So the issue has been, it really is a matter of infrastructure funding and the approach, again, as a case study, if you wanted to look at what UH has tried to do as a sterile environment experiment, these developments cannot occur on state property, literally with free land, without funding investment. And that investment does not work economically if you're only looking purely at the private sector to come in to provide it. So I think that's verified via the UH projects. For our experience, we do have some funding that's in the budget that is, we're hoping it's small. It will not go for physical infrastructure. So that problem will still have to be solved. But we have been trying to, you know, develop that. It is, as a textbook case, it would seem everything is right for that development, but I can tell you it is not actionable or has not been thus far. And I think it is related to entitlements and infrastructure is the cost side.
Sure. Thank you very much, Calbert. Any other, Chris, do you have any questions? Senator Lee.
Sure, I'll chime in. How many hours do we have?
You have 4 minutes.
No, I think you know, awesome presentations from everybody and great work from the city and the state and our other partners. I would just sort of pose this for perhaps a future meeting to be considered. Assuming, you know, full build out and we're making progress rapidly. There's two things I'd note. One is, I don't know if folks have seen this, but basically the updated Fed numbers show transit-related costs, in particular auto-related costs, have increased over 20% just in the last 12 months, which is expected to continue for some time, among other things. And secondly, looking at the kind of full build-out we're looking at with much higher density in some of these places, if you look at other places that have already achieved this, you know, over many decades in cities in, like New York or China or wherever, you have these kinds of higher densities. The transit situation is much different than I think what even we are still trying to adapt to. Even if we were fully to adapt and the city puts in more mobility and the state has you know, more projects like Farrington and so forth, which are awesome. But fundamentally, we don't seem to be, I guess, catching up with, I think, the need that we're planning for on the housing side, or addressing fundamentally the cost associated with the transit, particularly obviously if folks can't get out of cars in a meaningful way, or at least reduce the number of cars each family needs in a TOD zone. And then finally, even with rail, clearly with the advent, just looking at most other cities that have this kind of density and similar stats, it surely can't handle all of this, particularly if you need to move beyond their TOD zone and be able to bike out from stations and stuff. You know, each car only can accommodate so many people with bikes, that kind of thing. So all great questions to pose, and perhaps you know, we do have the PIG on this and other things that we'll be sort of diving into this stuff for. So Nadine, you posed it, so I'll just throw that out there for future thought.
Right. Sure. Okay. So we, Rodney, final words?
No, thank you very much. I would like to give you know, a shout out to Ruby Edwards and Carl Mura, our staff, who did a lot of work in putting this together.
Excellent job and very nice presentation. Let's see, Mary Alice and Denise, any final words?
Well, thank you to the legislators and city council members that have made this all this work possible. I think you're seeing the results of a lot of thoughtful due diligence on the part of our decision makers. And Senator Chang, I'm looking at you because you're both a council member, former council member, and a legislator. So thank you very much. But all of the legislators and the council members have helped make it possible. Thank you. Denise, what do you want to add?
No, you summed it up quite nicely. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for your time. This is really good discussion, very informative, very instructive. Thank you.
Senator Chang.
I just wanted to thank everyone again, and a special thanks to you, Chair Nakamura, for your leadership on this issue and for bringing together all of the agencies and stakeholders that are in the meeting today. It's a star-studded cast, and it's been very informative to all of us on the call. So thank you, Chair.
You're very welcome. Thank you all for this, for participating, and we hope to schedule more in the future. Mahalo. This meeting is adjourned.